what's up, party people? I am Erica, and welcome to my channel, Exactly Erica. Today, we are talking about Jen Shah pleading guilty to fraud charges, specifically wire fraud. And she's facing up to 14 years in prison. We are talking true crime meets reality TV, people. Let's get into this news and a little gossip, maybe. All right, you guys. Yes, we are here for some real life, true law and order. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Jen Shah, we met Jen Shah on season 1 and season 2 of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She was kind of honestly one of the crazy stars. She had wild antics. She is married to fine ass Coach Sharif Shah. She has 2 boys, and we saw a lot of her backstory with her family. And one of the things we saw was we saw her totally flaunting her luxurious lifestyle. Now, for some reason, on Salt Lake City, a lot of her and Meredith, a number of the wives, rent their homes. So they rent these sort of luxurious homes. But we also saw that she had a ton of assistants. She had a lot of staff. We never kind of really knew what she did. That was kind of always a little bit weird and unclear. Come to find out, she was running a criminal enterprise. But, we were trying to figure out what was funding this lavish lifestyle. So, for those of you who don't know, Jen Shah was indicted along with 12 other people for federal wire fraud. Originally, it was money laundering, a whole slew of charges. We're going to get into her charges. We're going to get into her guilty plea, which was kind of a shock and awe to all of us out there. And let's talk about it. Okay, first, let's get behind where this all came from. For those of you who watch Real Housewives of Salt Lake City last season and sort of, maybe it was the end. Okay, last season we saw her get arrested, right? Or well, she actually evaded the arrest. They were filming at the time. The feds pulled over the van. It was a big shebang. And somehow I feel like she got tipped off, but she always said she didn't. Who knows? But she and her right-hand man, Stuart. We saw so many scenes of her and Stuart. He was not only her number 1 executive assistant or number 1 assistant, he was her friend, or that's how she portrayed him on the show. They seem to be very close. They both get arrested in April of 2021. They both plead not guilty. However, the other 11 people that were charged, they eventually entered guilty pleas. They entered guilty pleas and came to some sort of agreement in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Then in November of 2021, Stuart, who honestly was very deep in her business, or that's the way she portrayed it, he also pled guilty. So the key thing to keep in mind is once all these people have pled guilty, I'm sure part of their deal was to testify against Jen, because we all know the feds always want to go for the big fish, and that is her. She was the one who was behind all of these companies. She was the one who was telling people to get companies and third-party names. I'm not sure the names, but I will actually eventually look that up. But she was the one who kind of fueled this enterprise. So once Stuart changed his plea to guilty, we all kind of thought, oh no, the cards are going to tumble. But up until the reunion of the last season of season 2, she has pled her innocence. Okay, and I have the picture in the thumbnail. Let's pull a picture of Jen and her tears. She was crying and tearful because here we go. Here's a picture of Jen at the reunion crying, upset because her friends didn't fully support her. They didn't believe in her innocence. Even then, she said she was innocent. She was going to spend her money and her time fighting it because of this. And she was fighting, quote unquote, for the people who couldn't. Now, one of my issues with Jen is when she says she's fighting for the people who can't, I feel like she's talking about us, because this is how she's gonna show up to court. One of my subscribers, Monique, mentioned looking like Northwest. Shout out to Monique and Ellen. Thank you for sitting through my live. I went live earlier going over this, and the audio was horrible, so I had to redo it. But thank you guys. Love you all so much for even checking it out. But yes, here is Jen Shah, in the words of Monique, looking totally like Northwest. Now she's wearing a dookie braids. I'm sorry, sweetie. You don't have to wear black hairstyles when you go into court or you go into jail. Like, that's not a thing. You're not representing us, if anything, even though she's also kooky. Mary is actually black, so she represents us. But yeah, so the whole cultural appropriation, the whole, I don't know what she calls herself doing with this look, but I have an issue with it. So I took a look at the press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and this is what they had to say about Jen's charges. Jennifer Shah, and this is coming from U.S. Attorney Damian Williams, who's out of New York. Jennifer Shah was a key participant in a nationwide scheme that targeted elderly, vulnerable victims. These victims were sold false promises of financial security, but instead, Shah, among other things, sold leads to other participants for use by their telemarketing sales floors with the knowledge that the individuals they had identified as quote-unquote leads would be defrauded. She knew that she sold the leads to other criminals, okay, and got paid for that. Then later on, she herself began selling these false, phony services, which she never delivered on. And furthermore, in approximately 2017, Shah began operating a Manhattan-based sales floor. Okay, so not only was she operating out of Utah and selling her leads nationwide, then she sets up shop in Manhattan, which was probably somewhere, that probably had a lot to do with the fact that it was the New York U.S. Attorney's Office that went after her. And so then she grows her, basically she grew her scam, okay? And what is so crazy about it is, among other things, Shah with other participants moved certain operations from the Manhattan sales floor to Kosovo, people, to Kosovo, to avoid enforcement and regulatory scrutiny. So I wonder, did she know that the FBI was after her, or was her income growing so big that she took it abroad, baby? So those were the things that she's been accused of. She was accused of wire fraud. She was accused of money laundering. At the time of her initial charges, she was facing 30 years in prison. And Fed time is not the same as state time. You don't get off early for good behavior. That's real time, people. So now let's talk a little bit more, and I think the fact that she had such a lavish lifestyle, very much like Erica Jane from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, they flaunted their clothes, their cars, their homes, and to know that they got all these things on the backs of these victims, vulnerable people, elderly, in Erica's case, in Tom's case, the injured, I mean, it's unbelievable, really, and kind of upsetting. But let's talk a little bit about her plea deal. So, Jen Shah admitted her guilt on one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud in connection with telemarketing. The U.S. Attorney General agreed to drop the charges of money laundering. So, by pleading guilty in court, and she pled guilty on Monday, July 11th, exactly 1 week before her trial was supposed to start. Her trial was supposed to start Monday, July 18th. So she pled guilty to wire fraud in connection with telemarketing, through which she victimized 10 or more persons over the age of 55. That is key, because she targeted people who were elderly, who didn't understand, who were vulnerable. And these people were giving her their life savings for her to buy her exotic clothing. Like, it's crazy. Make it make sense. So what she has agreed to do is, in terms of jail time, she is facing a minimum of 11 years to a maximum of 14. And that is really frightening, because to imagine that a decade is a deal, okay? A decade in prison. She is basically going to lose her 50s, because she's 48 now. By the time she gets out of prison, she'll be facing 60. That's scary. But on top of that, she has agreed to forfeit $6.5 million. So assuming that she has right now that $6.5 million, she has to turn that over. Then once she turns that over, she has to pay restitution up to $9.5 million. How, Sway? How's this gonna happen? How is she gonna do it? Okay, she's going to jail. She's gonna have to face it. Straight to jail. Right here we go. Yes, she's going down, people. And how is she going to pay $9.5 million? She can't steal from the old people anymore. Maybe she can sell those clothes on eBay. Here's the thing. I read in an article that Coach Sharif makes $500,000 a year, which is a great, I mean, that's wonderful. I'd be happy with a man. I hope I was making $500,000. But how are they going to come up with 9.5? You can't discharge this in bankruptcy. It's going to follow her for a very long time. Now, she won't be sentenced until November 28th of this year. So right now, I know she filmed the 3rd season of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She's probably kind of going to go on a whole hobo tour about how she's changed. She's a new person, because the goal is to get to give, she can always ask for less than the 11 years. And we would hope and pray that she would get it. A decade is a long time. But she's also been doing this criminal business since 2012. She's been taking advantage of the elderly for a long time as well. So, there's some cost to justice. You do the crime. I don't know. Is she going to do the time? But here are the questions that I have for you guys. Now that we know what she's facing, we kind of have an idea more so about what she's done. How is she going to live with the sentence? How is she going to live with this plea agreement? How will this impact her family and the show? Is she going to, excuse me, you guys, these lashes are dusty today. Is she going to, all the things she's going to miss, her son's graduating from college, maybe marriage, grandchildren, all those things. A decade is a very long time, okay? And more importantly, do you all think Real Housewives of Salt Lake City can survive without her crazy ass? She did keep up a lot of drama, a lot of mess, although personally I feel like if Mary comes back, she's crazy enough to do it. Although, I don't know, is Mary even coming back? So will Real Housewives of Salt Lake City even be there in 10 years when she gets out? That's another question. I like it when Teresa or, Joe or Apollo or whatever, I like it when they go to prison and come back. And certainly, Jen, I'm here to tell you, if you got on Love During Lockup, Love After Lockup, I would totally check you out. I love those shows as well. We support you, girl, to some extent. But we do not like what you did. That's where we draw the line. But do you all think that Coach Shah will stay with her? To me, as Ellen and Monique mentioned earlier in my live, I'm amazed he stayed with her crazy ass this long, okay? He is ride or die. Is he her papoose to her Remy Ma? Since she's going to wear the braids. Is that what she's looking for? Can you imagine? He's 49. Is he willing to give up his whole 50s? How is he going to go see her in federal prison in New York while he's on road coaching? You know what I'm saying? He can't quit his job now because they owe $9.5 million. I don't know, hopefully they're married. Hopefully she can get some conjugal visits in. But do you all think that Coach Shah is going to be there for that 10-year, 11-year ride? That is my question. I think he might try in the beginning, but that's a long time. Hopefully, my prayers go out to her and her family, because really, I think her family is going to also do the time with her. And that's what makes it so devastating. They, Sharif, none of them really did the crime. They didn't take advantage of the older people, but they are also going to be doing the time with her to some extent, no matter how it falls out. So I certainly keep them in my prayers. I keep the victims in my prayers. Hopefully they get some of that 9.5 million back and they get some of their lives restored. But you guys, let me know your thoughts on this. What do you all feel about Jen's conviction? Do you feel like her guilty plea is just, something she came up with? Or do you feel like the feds basically nailed that ass to the wall? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments. Like, subscribe. I had some, honestly, I had some illness. But I'm back, people, and you will catch me, reviewing Real Housewives of Atlanta, Dubai, Beverly Hills, and some other things this week. Thank you so much, folks, and ciao for now. See you soon.